What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and you guys let me know that we have a new Unearthed Arcana preview video for the Unearthed Arcana Playtest number 6, which actually comes out tomorrow, which means I am behind on actually going through the Playtest 5. I don't think I ever finished it, but I'm hoping this one should have the monk in it. I will more than likely be doing a live stream once it goes live where we'll go through it together and then break it down into future videos. It's an 8-minute video we're going to watch right now. So because it's only 8 minutes, we'll watch it at regular speed. So buckle up. Also, if you want to stay up to date on when I do these kinds of videos, I've been trying to do a lot more content, mixing in a lot more short form content, the fun rolling stats videos, and I have some other stuff planned. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this right here.
Hello everyone, today we're talking about Unearthed Arcana, the Playtest 6 for the Player's Handbook. What you're watching right now is the overview video. Tomorrow we will release all of the videos.
They're in the game room of that one office. I know because I was in there at the Content Creator Summit.
Is going into all the classes and some more specifics as to what is in the Unearthed Arcana. This is the biggest one so far, right?
Right. The previous Unearthed Arcana was the biggest Unearthed Arcana
Oh my god, this live stream's gonna be like 4 hours long.
ever. This Unearthed Arcana now takes that crown and is now the new biggest Unearthed Arcana we have ever done. And in addition to 7 classes, there are also
7?
revised spells. There's even a brand new spell. There are brand new subclasses, because also for the first time in the playtest series, the classes that appear here all have multiple subclasses now.
Okay.
And so some of those subclasses
This is going to be big.
Are revisions of beloved subclasses from 2014.
Right.
And in a few cases, we are introducing entirely new subclasses. This is the first Unearthed Arcana in the series that represents a lot of refinement based on the playtest feedback that we've been receiving previously in the series.
So I'm going to guess this is going to go back to like the Bard, Rogue, Ranger, Cleric, Druid, stuff like that. And they said new subclasses, so I'm wondering if we're going to get the Monk. Because we still have not yet to see what they're even planning in any aspect. They said it's 7 classes. So I'm hoping we see the Monk, because it hasn't appeared at all. And they're saying multiple classes, so I think for some, could this be 3 subclasses? Like for some of the classes that only had 2 in the 2014?
You and I talked in a previous video about this UA really representing the start of a new chapter in this series.
Yeah,
because now we're really focusing on refining those things that are going to end up in the 2024 version
for the Monk we don't know about yet.
Handbook. And you're going to see here the return of some features from 2014 that might have been absent in earlier versions of this playtest material. They're going to see brand new features inspired by the playtest feedback we've received. So there is a lot to ingest here. Weapon Mastery is now in this Unearthed Arcana. We introduced that in the previous one.
It's going to be
It
refined?
was a huge hit. We now have the scores from the most recent playtest survey, and Weapon Mastery is here to stay. We will be refining it.
That's important.
Digging into the details of some of those options. But now that we've seen that this feature is beloved, it now appears in additional classes. You're going to see it in this Unearthed Arcana in the Rogue, the Ranger, the Paladin, the Monk.
Well, there we go. We're getting monks. So it sounds like this is all martials will have this. We saw it in the Barbarian. We saw it in the Fighter. We knew you could get it via feat. But now it makes sense to give it to the Monk. That always made sense to me. I guess it kind of makes sense to give it to the Ranger and the Paladin. You're sort of half-casters. And Rogue is an interesting choice. I guess I never really think of the Rogue as a martial class, but I guess it kind of is.
And now those classes get to have new tactical experiences because of the introduction
We're going
of
to go to
weapon mastery.
1.25 speed because you
Also,
can basically
something
can't
that
tell the
is
difference.
true of all 7 classes is their 20th level features have returned to 20th level.
Oh.
Why? So remember we were talking about this where they said they were going to go back to differing subclass stuff, where they were going to have like differing features. So now they're moving the capstones, which were moved from 20 to 18 and then given a new capstone at 20, are now going back to 20?
We had been testing for a while the introduction of epic boon feats at 20th level in each class. Looking at the playtest feedback we've gotten since last year, there's interest in epic boon feats, but it's clear that people were not interested in them replacing their class's 20th level feature.
But they didn't replace it.
They'd never actually technically replaced them because we had taken those 20th level features and
made them
moved them
18.
to 18th level.
Right.
But really the sentiment has been that people want their 20th level feature to be specific to.
Or how about you just give us epic class levels and give us an epic level handbook and give us levels 20 to 30? That would make everybody happy.
Their class. There's a note in the Unearthed Arcana that we will continue to explore epic boon feats, but we'll do that in a future Unearthed Arcana. And so now the focus is back on the 20th level features that each class gets. In some cases, those features are the same as they were in 2014.
The only ones that should be like the same as they were in 2014 are like the Paladin and the Barbarian. I think pretty much everything else could be shifted. Maybe the Fighter was a 4th attack at 20. Most of them need to be adjusted slightly. But in all honesty, I'd rather have you focus, like, I don't really give a shit about epic boons, and that really I've never enjoyed it. It was always something I just touched on when I would review these things and kind of glance over it. I'd rather you devote your resources, time, and effort into getting everything else good, and this could fall on the back burner, in my opinion.
But then in other cases, we have introduced some brand new 20th level features.
Good, like
the very
monk.
first class in the list, the Bard, has a brand new 20th level feature,
Good.
Words of Creation.
There were other changes as well. You've moved some things back to the subclass choice. Starts earlier.
Yes, as you and I chatted about in one of our previous videos, we have shifted the subclass progressions for all of the classes to match their 2014 progressions. It was a fun experiment to see how it would work if every class proceeded through their subclass levels at the same time. But that exploration was causing some ripple effects that were then causing other problems in certain classes.
Okay, so I think this comes down to two things, right? So it's just so interesting that the biggest point that they tried to make with normalizing subclass progression to starting at level 3 was that it was easier, and it made it, at least the way I'm interpreting what they're saying, is that classes are now getting subclasses back at level 1. So this is a twofold thing, and I think we need to come in and talk about this here. So what it comes down to me is they're like, oh, it's super important that you play the base class first before you get the subclass, so that it's not so difficult and you're not making damning choices for your character at level 1 when you find out later on you really would have enjoyed something else. And that made sense to me. That aspect I never disagreed with, where, you know, at level 1, you might make a choice as a cleric or a warlock and be like, ah, damn, I wish I picked something different, when you see everybody else getting their stuff at level 3, because maybe you thought you were going to be a martial-based warlock and you go, like, you know, Pact of the Blade, or you're going to do Hexblade or whatever, and you actually decide you wanted to go spellcasting instead, but you didn't have an opportunity to play around and see, so you're like, ah, crap, well, I kind of screwed myself on that. Now, again, that's not how I play. Usually I have my entire character mapped out from 1 to 20 before I sit down at the table. That's just me. Maybe other people play it more by ear as things go along. But yeah, I'm not sure. I that argument made sense to me, right? Let everybody get a feel for their class, and then they all get it at the later level. Now, there were a lot of arguments in the comments and in other places of people saying, like, well, how do I make a pact later on? Or how can I be having a divine domain, but I don't get it till 3 when I picked my god, you know, that kind of a thing. So that I get, but I think what it ultimately comes down to is this ripple effect, is we told you it's going to be backwards compatible with 2014, but if the subclass progression is different, how is it backwards compatible? And what was a 20th level feature for some classes is now an 18th level feature. Again, Paladin, right, their final subclass feature comes online at 20, but if I wanted to use a 2014 subclass with the 2020 Paladin, it wouldn't work because then I'd be getting my 20th level feature at 18. So everything would be wonky, and I'm guessing that, like, it seemed like they were dead set on this is what we're going to do because it's best for the game, and then now all of a sudden it was a fun experiment. I don't know. You tell me what you think in the comments.
And so now that we're in the refinement phase of this playtest process, we've returned to the tried and true subclass progressions from 2014. The one exception being that we are continuing to move forward in the playtest with all classes getting their first subclass level at 3rd level.
Well, that was a wasted conversation on my part. Never mind.
That has actually been working well in the playtest, whereas the later level changes were not delivering the goods, basically.
So I'm going to argue against that. Like, okay, so I made my whole little diatribe about how, like, oh, I guess they're doing it because it didn't match up. But then they say, no, we're going to match. This is why I should watch the whole video before I make these, but that's not how I roll. So they are going to keep subclass progression at 3. Okay, that's fine. All right. That all of my original points still stand where I think that makes sense. But who cares after? I don't really care after that. That's the biggest shift in my opinion, is if everybody's starting at 3, why not just normalize the subclass progression? Why change things up? It's weird to me because, like, clerics got it at, like, didn't it get like 1 and something at 2? So, like, now that is 3, but, like, how are you going to normalize the progression? It's weird because some classes got stuff at 17. Some people got stuff at 20. I liked the normalized progression. If you're gonna go to everybody starts the same, why not just continue that forward? Also, again, bards didn't even get, I think they had, what, 3, 6, and 14? They only got 3 subclass features. They didn't even get 4. So you're gonna adjust that? I hope so, but I don't know.
They were not increasing fun enough to justify some of the ripple effects in the classes. And so we have found that by returning to the 2014 level progression, we've not only been able to ensure cleaner compatibility with subclasses that are already in print, but it's also opened up space for us to do some exciting new design. We'll talk a bit about that when we get to the Rogue, for instance. Returning to the 2014 subclass level progression opened up space in the Rogue's class table for us to create a brand new feature for the whole class called Cunning Strike. But we'll talk more about that when we get to the Rogue.
This might be like something apart from all this, but I feel like there's like more of a planar energy theme coming from all the subclasses a little bit. Like, well, like the way the Shadow specifically references the Shadowfell. Obviously, the Gloomstalker always did as well, but like I just get more of a planar energy feel from some of the subclasses, or like more on theme.
So something that we're able to do as we revisit subclasses, as we knit together a revised version of the Player's Handbook, is inject a bit more of the game's broader setting into some of the flavor text. And that broader setting, of course, is the multiverse. And so,
well, that broader setting being the multiverse really only seems like it's been the broader setting as of recently, but either way.
So yeah, there intentionally are more nods to the game's macro setting than ever before. And that's why you will now see a mention of the Shadowfell where maybe you didn't before.
Right.
Or you'll see a reference to the Feywild or the Nine Hells that wasn't in the previous version.
What was most exciting for this group of playtest, for Playtest 6?
We love taking feedback that people give us, analyzing it, then comparing it to our own playtest experience, and refining the design based on that. And this Unearthed Arcana is all about that process. UA 6, top to bottom, was about us, as we move into this refinement phase of the playtest, really digging into what brings people joy, what's working well in our internal playtests and in our development and our balance passes, marrying all those things together to create versions of things that we hope will delight people for years to come. And of course, we're going to keep iterating over the next few months as this playtest continues. It was really exciting to feel like in this playtest, a lot of things really snapping into place. And you can see now the 2024 books starting to come into focus here in the playtest process.
So there we have it. Tomorrow, it seems like they normally release these around 10 a.m. My time, Eastern time. So we'll probably get a live stream going as soon as that becomes available to kind of go through this. Looks like we're definitely getting the Monk. Sounds like we're probably getting the Bard, Rogue, and Ranger. That's 4. And then they said a total of 7. My guess is Paladin, Druid, or sorry, Paladin, that would be 5. And then I guess Cleric, Druid. That would be it's 8, Ted. Do your math. Wait. Okay. They mentioned Monk. There's 1. Right? They mentioned Bard, Ranger, Rogue. That's 4. And that makes sense because that was the original, right? Then the next one we got was the Cleric. And then they'd also mentioned Ranger and Paladin. So I'm going to throw Paladin in there, making 6. So then I'm going to throw the next one on there is probably the Druid, which means we just got Fighter and Barbarian, and we just got Sorcerer, Wizard, Warlock. So I'm going to leave those alone. I think those are still too new and don't have enough. So if that's the 7, I'm interested to see, especially because, like they said, they're keeping Weapon Mastery. They're applying it to classes that didn't have it, which again makes sense with things like the Ranger and the Rogue and the Paladin. I think Druid needs a massive overhaul. A lot of us did not like the path forward they took with the Druid, so this would be a good faith move to show us what the updates are. So I'm pretty excited to see. This has some new spells, a whole new feature for the Rogue, which would be interesting because there were some like delays to the where features were. And I wonder if that's going to shift because, for example, I think Evasion for the Rogue in like 2014, you got Evasion at 7. I think in 2024 playtest, you get it at 9. So I wonder if like when they're shifting the subclass progression, if other abilities are going to jumble around as well. I don't know. I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. And I'll see you all next time. Or I guess tomorrow for the playtest live stream.